and he came to a class that we'd been taking, and we were out at the wildlife area with him, and he was with his mom, and he was really shy, but he showed great promise. And time went on, and he maintained his interest, and now he's getting ready to graduate from UC Davis and has turned into an amazing adult. So no more, take it away. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zane, and like Ann said, I grew up in Davis, but 4 years ago I started at UC Davis in my undergrad, and it just so happened that the year before I started, the couple of friends of mine started the Birdwatching Club at UC Davis, and it's turned out to be a really amazing club that's grown a lot over the last few years. And I wanted to talk to you all today and tell you about the different things that our club does and different events and such that we have and some plans that we have going forward to continue to grow the club as we go into what will be the 6th year of the club next year. You're frozen?
Why not?
Oh, we're just clicking here.
Yeah, so the arrows should work. Space should work. Sorry about that.
So for an outline, I'll start by talking about the club's beginnings and how it got started, and then I'll talk about different events and field trips, our meetings, and the different stuff that we do as a club. And then I'll talk about the community of our club, which I think is really important. We have a lot of people from various backgrounds, and we all share an interest in birds and birding. And then I'll talk about how our club sets people up for careers with birds, if that's something that they're interested in. And then I'll finish up by talking about some recent developments in our club and some goals we have for the future. So club beginnings. The club was founded in fall of 2021 by my friends Cameron Tusher and Frank Favreau. And they both had this idea that, Davis is a really well-known school for ecology and wildlife biology. So there's a lot of students that come through there that are interested in birds and wildlife. And it kind of seemed fitting that we would have a club dedicated to bird watching. What I don't think Cam, or certainly not I, had anticipated was just how popular it would end up being. Within like the first 2 weeks of starting the club, there was over 250 people that had signed up on campus, both for our email list and through like our official club portal with UC Davis. The club has been and continues to be entirely student run. Some of the club officers like myself are in the audience tonight. And everything we do is run by students, and I think that's pretty special to have such a successful club that we've put together. All of our events are free and open to anyone who's interested, and as long as you have an interest in birds and birding, you're more than welcome. And we have people that have come into our club with lots of experience who've been birding for years. They love going outside in nature, good photographers, artists. And we also have people who just have a curiosity and have never gone out birding before, and some of them haven't ever used binoculars and stuff like that. And so we give them a place to get that experience and introduction.
Those controls go away.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's every time someone comes into the Zoom room, it will.
is it better if I accept people or if I?
You
just
can
like
accept people, but the thing that Ken will also accept people that you need to do the little.
Okay, perfect. So like I said, the club interest started really fast. We had a bunch of people sign up back in 2021, and the first club workshop, club meeting was in the UC Davis Museum of Wildlife and Fish Biology. Andrew Inglis is the curator there, and he gave a presentation for 20 or 25 people who happened to be the first ones to sign up because the meeting filled up and the space filled very quickly. And similarly, the first club walk at the UC Davis Arboretum was very popular. Lots of students of all different levels, undergrad, graduate, came out, and we really haven't looked back from there. At this point, we have over 300 official members, over 900 people follow our Instagram account. Most of our field trips have between 10 and 25 people, depending on interest and space on the trip. And generally, when we have capped field trips, given carpooling space, they fill up within the first couple hours. So there's clearly a great need for this club on the UC Davis campus. And then I'm going to talk about our different club events. Being a birding club, you probably won't be surprised to know that our main thing is field trips. We all want to get out in the field and watch birds. And so sometimes we do local trips, stuff that students can access by bike or walking. So like the UC Davis Arboretum and the Poudre Creek Riparian Reserve, popular places in town. And then at least once or twice a quarter, we organize carpooling trips to visit more well-known birding spots where you can see a lot of different species, such as Poudre Creek Canyon, the Yola Bypass Wildlife Area, and some of the national wildlife refuges in the Sacramento Valley. We keep a club eBird profile, which is kind of fun to see like all the species that the club has seen together. And at this point, we've run over 60 successful field trips, so an average of 12 a year. 234 species have been recorded on our club trips, and it averages out to between 3 and 5 field trips per quarter, although that number is going up lately with a lot of interest of late. So some of our popular field trips, I think our field trips are definitely the aspect of the club that draws the most interest and gives people the most opportunity to get into the field. And one of the trips that's actually coming up for this year is our visit to Cache Creek to see lesser nighthawks. And this trip always is a huge hit. We go out to Cape Open Space Park and walk along Cache Creek. There's usually plenty of nighthawks flying around and displaying, and it's a really great opportunity for people to see an uncommon bird that we're lucky to have in our area. That's also very easy to see when they're flying around displaying and often singing in late May evenings. Like I mentioned, Poudre Creek Canyon is another really popular space for us to visit. The fishing accesses between Lake Solano and Lake Berryessa offer really good access to see species that we can't see on the valley floor. And we always try to get up there at least once or twice a year in various carpools. And so you can see it in this photo on the right. There's about 20 students that we took up there last year, and it was definitely some cramped carpools, but there's a lot of interest to get out there. In part because of the birds that we see. This northern pygmy owl is probably one of the crowd favorites of all time for these trips. We've seen it on multiple occasions every year. For those who aren't familiar with the pygmy owl, it's a small owl that whistles. It's about the size of your fist or a tad bit bigger. And it's always a really special bird to see on field trips. We haven't been able to do this in the last year because of construction, but the Hutchison Crow Watch has been a very locally famous field trip with the Birdwatching Club. You can go on top of one of the parking garages on the UC Davis campus, which happens to be right over a massive crow roost at Hutchison Field. And so on winter evenings, you can go up there and see thousands of crows coming in and also watch the sunset over East Davis, or West Davis rather. We also frequently try to get up to Sacramento and Calusa National Wildlife Refuges. A lot of you guys are probably familiar and go up there in the winter to see all the snow and greater white-fronted geese. And this is definitely more an intense trip, but sometimes it's the first opportunity that people have had to get up there and see all these waterfowl and shorebirds and other species. In addition to our regular field trips, we also host at least one, more recently, 2 to 3 formal meetings per quarter. And these can include bird identification workshops, which I'll talk more about in a moment, some presentations on various bird research on campus from graduate students or professors, and sometimes we'll have guest speakers from other organizations talk about their work or different bird-related topics. Personally, I think the identification workshops are one of the most special opportunities that we're able to offer. In conjunction with the UC Davis Museum of Wildlife and Fish Biology, we are able to access specimens from all throughout the world, including representative specimens from birds throughout California. And so oftentimes we'll focus on a different taxonomic group. Sometimes we'll do waterfowl, we've done raptors, and other different groups to focus on how to identify them. And having that opportunity to like have a bird in your hand and really look at all the field marks, that up close experience is something that's we're lucky to have because the museum is not normally open to the public. We recently did a raptor ID workshop, and so we reserved the main teaching lab in the UC Davis Museum. And we put out the specimens on tables, usually have a little presentation, and then we'll go around and actually interact with the different specimens. For example, at our raptor workshop, we had all the different falcons of California laid out next to each other. Really cool opportunity to compare different sizes of the males and females and different species. Some beautiful rough-legged and ferruginous hawks on the bottom. And on the left there's a condor wing, which was bigger than a few of our members. A fun new thing we added this year was Valentine's Day, which we celebrated the day before Valentine's Day on February 13th. February also happens to be a great time to go out and look for gulls and attempt to identify them. So we practiced with the specimens in the ID workshop and then went out into the field at the Yolo County landfill later that week, and we did our best. But as we know, gulls are challenging. We also recently did a workshop promoting the California Bird Atlas. If you're not familiar with that project, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's a new statewide breeding bird atlas where people can submit records of breeding birds through eBird to contribute to this giant citizen science project. I definitely recommend looking into it. And from this workshop, we had lots of students who signed up for the Bird Atlas. And so now UC Davis will be well represented in that data set. In addition to events for our regular club members, we've also had the opportunity to work with some other organizations. The two that I'm most proud of are we were asked to give brief talks to the Davis Senior High School Birding Club and the Sacramento Valley Young Birders Club. And both of these clubs are for young birders. The Sac Valley Club is like 11 to 17 and has like 12 young birders from the area in it. And the Davis Senior High School Club has, I think, 15 to 20 people in it. And so we went out and talked to them about what it's like being in college, studying birds and wildlife, what makes UC Davis a successful university for bird research and what we enjoy about it. And then the steps that they'll go through in college applications and what they might want to think about if they want to go into bird research. And that was a really special opportunity to talk and kind of help guide some aspiring young birders. We also frequently have our tabling events where we reach out to new members. We do that at Picnic Day, at Biodiversity Museum Day, which is like the UC Davis Museum's open house once a year, and at the involvement or club fair. And so in addition to, reaching out to new people, we usually get a lot of signups for the club on those events. We also get to interact with the public and teach them about birds and birding. I'm always really inspired when I see someone that comes up to us and they don't know what birding is. They ask, and then we start talking to them. Before we know it, they've signed up and they're at our events. And so getting to see people like truly hear about birding for the first time and then go experience it is really special. We have a very active and supportive birding community, and that's something I'm really proud of. There's birders of all types, different experience levels, different intensities. Some people are going out on their own all the time, and others are more chill about it. They like the camaraderie of the club. We have a lot of really great photographers, artists, and people that enjoy birding in all different forms, and that's cool that we can all celebrate that together. I mentioned before, but one more time, we have undergraduate students that run the club, but we also have grad students, staff, faculty in our club. Occasionally on field trips, we'll have people just join us from the public that run into us, ask us what they're doing, and before we know it, we're bird watching with them, which is pretty fun. And I know a lot of local birders recently that have gotten their start through the Birdwatching Club. One thing I thought was funny is this is a phainopepla. I've heard multiple people attempt to pronounce this bird name multiple times. And it's definitely one of the most challenging. But it also is a really striking bird with that beautiful black crest and red eye. And I've seen multiple people get their lifer, be really inspired by that. Last year we had a couple of moments where UC Davis bird watchers were in the news. The first was a group that I was a part of along with some of my professors when we set the Yolo County Big Day record with 173 birds in 24 hours in Yolo County on a very intense and long day. But it was cool to be acknowledged and draw some attention to the club that way with that article. But then in December, one of our club officers, Julian Johnson, finished up a Yolo County Big Year in which he set the record for the most species seen in Yolo County in 1 year. And one of the UC Davis media team did a really nice article about Julian's efforts and how he got into birding. With all these birders around, it's unsurprising that we've had some really notable birds that have shown up on campus. In the last couple of years, there's been a chestnut-sided warbler, a Tennessee warbler, and an orchard oriole, all on campus. For those that don't know, all those species are from the East Coast, and so certainly should not be in Davis. But not only did they show up, but they also stuck around for long enough for a lot of people to get to see them. That orchard oriole in the middle in particular spent the winter in 2023 and 2024. And by the end of its stay, it was singing from Scrubs Cafe, where Anne was referencing just before. I think like over 50 people saw that bird. That might be low. I went to see it multiple times, and every time I would go, there would be students there watching it. So it was definitely a crowd favorite. And recently, as Anne mentioned at the beginning of this, there's a calliope hummingbird in the Arboretum, and that's been a big hit for both student birders and local Yolo County birders alike. And we also had some cool finds on our field trips. Back in 2023, Cameron Tesher and his group found a purple martin at Colusa National Wildlife Refuge. Those are usually found more on the coast ranges and the Sierras. So seeing one on the valley floor, especially in a county like Colusa, was unexpected. And last year in February, Ethan Matsuyama and his walk at West Davis Pond had a red-naped sapsucker, which is only the 7th or so record for Yolo County. So a very exceptional find. We've also collaborated with a few other groups on campus. There's a lot of nature and wildlife focused groups. I listed some of them here. It's been cool to connect with these different groups that are also have similar interests, but focus on different things than just birds. And so, for example, we did a trip to see sandhill cranes with the Wildlife Photography Club down by Lodi. And we were all very excited about the many cranes flying over and calling, and it was really exceptional. Other than the photography club, that just a line of cameras basically down the entire road. But we were all in it together and enjoying that. A more recent thing is we've been able to connect with other university birding clubs. I didn't really realize just how many there are until we started connecting with them for events such as the California Campus's Birdathon. That's a now annual, I guess biannual, twice a year. We all the bird watching clubs in California focus on their campus and try to see as many species as they can within the campus boundaries. And so actually our birdathon was just this past week. And we broke our record for the most birds that we found on UC Davis property with 90 species. And there's at least 8 different universities in California that participated. So it was pretty cool to get out there, some people really went after it and birded every corner of the campus all the way until nearly midnight to make sure that we saw every species we could. And it was cool to compare with what the other campuses found in different parts of California. And coincidentally, April 11th was also the Intercollegiate Big Day, which is organized by Ohio State University's Birding Club. The Ohio State University's Birding Club. Good catch. And this is pretty similar idea, but basically nationwide, where lots of campuses, including the Ohio State University, Duke, and various others, all had campus big days where they were trying to see however many birds they could find on their campus. So we submitted our 90 species that we found, but when tallied up with all the campuses that participated, collegiate birders found over 280 species on that day. In addition to our club events, we also help people set up their careers for bird work if that's something they're interested in. One way that the Birdwatching Club doesn't run, but is connected in a lot of ways, is through a class offered at UC Davis called WFC 111L. It's the introduction to birdwatching, basically, but you get to learn all of California's birds or breeding birds, which is intense for people. You have to learn 300 bird species by sight and a good number of them by sound in 10 weeks, using both field experience and through the specimens at the UC Davis Museum of Wildlife and Fish Biology that I mentioned before. And so that's a really useful opportunity, not just for people to learn birds that haven't before, but also once they've completed that class, being able to say that you can identify 300 birds, that's a marketable skill in a lot of bird jobs. This is what the museum looks like on final exam review day. That only shows about half the room, so about half the birds, but it's pretty awesome to be in there and see basically all of California's birds in one room, but it also is a stressful time for the students. That same museum offers a lot of undergraduate internship and volunteer opportunities, including opportunities to get out and work with nestling songbirds through the Poudre Creek Nest Box Highway, and also through internships in the museum itself, both through field work and operating the collection through specimen prep and curation. So here's collections manager Irene Inglis teaching students in the teaching lab. And here's museum curator Andy, who's teaching some students about bird molt. And Dr. Melanie Turan of the Nest Box program shows some kids here a songbird cavity nest box. So all those opportunities, as well as others at UC Davis, give students the opportunity to experience birds and bird research in the field. And that looks great on resumes and CVs, as well as just having that hands-on field experience is really important for people when they go to apply to jobs. And so I talked about some of the opportunities in the museum, but there's also a lot of bird research going on at UC Davis. Many of those projects have been presented in the last few months for YOLA Bird Alliance here. But it also means that there's usually opportunities for undergrads, which is really special because that's something that's not offered at a lot of universities. And having that lab and field experience working with birds as an undergrad is very important. And many of those projects are also partially funded by the YOLA Bird Alliance Small Grants program. So thank you to YOLA Bird Alliance for supporting research for birds at Davis. In addition to opportunities on campus, we oftentimes will get advertisements for job postings and internship opportunities from bird groups throughout the state and even nationally. And so a lot of our club members have gone on to work or do internships at various bird conservation groups, including the Audubon Society, the U.S. Geological Survey, Point Blue Conservation Science, and the American Bird Conservancy. And in addition to that, many others are continuing their education and research at institutions such as UC Davis and other universities around the country. I want to talk about a few cool recent developments in our club, and then a few goals for the future. One thing that's been really great is we've brought on some very engaged and qualified new officers, and as a result, we've been able to put on a lot more events than we used to. And this spring quarter, we have 10 events planned, which is a new record for us. So I'm hoping to continue that going forward, and continue to offer as many opportunities for people to get out birding as possible. We also have a website as of this year. I put a little screenshot of our homepage there, but we can post it somewhere later where people can access it. But our website has our full schedule of events for students to follow. It has information about our club and other useful stuff for students interested in birds. And then, as of very recently, we are now officially part of the Audubon on Campus program. So California Audubon has this new program that they've started where campus birding clubs can join, and they'll help with mentorship and leading conservation initiatives that we might be interested in, both on campus and beyond, and potentially giving us funding, which will help us take more people on field trips. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. And in turn, we're going to continue to provide opportunities for people to get into birds and get bird work experience. And we're going to take on some conservation initiatives on campus that we're still brainstorming, but we'll be providing them with updates about our club and what we're doing in exchange for their internship. Oh, yeah. Another really exciting new thing is we now have Birdwatching Club merch. This is going to be available on Printify by the end of the week. And I'm just really blown away by the incredible art that our previous officer, Alia 2, put together. So we'll have t-shirts, there's a sticker in the top left corner, and we'll have a tote bag. So now people can really feel connected to the club and continue to show it off. One of our goals for the fall is going to be to start using campus transportation to take more people out birding. Our biggest limitation at this point is carpooling. And so, like I said before, most of our field trips fill up really quickly, like within the first hour or two. And so there's often a long wait list of people that want to get out and experience birding, but we just don't have the capacity. But we've talked with the UC Davis Fleet Services, and we can have the potential to rent out their campus vans, which will be really exciting and allow us to take more people on these trips. But to do that, we're going to have to do some fundraising. And so we are hosting a YOLO Berry fundraiser on Wednesday, May 6th. And if you guys like yogurt, I highly recommend that you guys attend and help us get more people out into the field. To close, I want to thank everybody who's worked together to make this club possible. Like I said, we're an entirely student-run organization. And so I want to thank a few people. The first is our club officers. Here's a list of everybody that's been involved with running the club in the last few years. A huge shout out again to Cam and Frank, who started this club 5 years ago. And I think it's just grown and impacted people beyond our wildest expectations. I'm really excited to introduce next year's officers that are going to carry the club into the next 5 years. That'll be Grace Bottomley, Joe Zeno, Peyton Bounds, Aaron Gompertz, Calvin Vaughn, and Kayla Portman. And I have no doubt that the club is in good hands. I'd also like to thank a few groups that have been particularly impactful for the club in the past few years. I've mentioned the UC Davis Museum of Wildlife and Fish Biology multiple times, but those ID workshops and allowing us to use their teaching space has been very helpful. And in addition, there are many faculty and students within the Wildlife Fish and Conservation Biology Department that have supported us. Yola Bird Alliance is another one for hosting us tonight, but in addition, supporting research opportunities for many students involved in the club and helping promote our events. And the Central Valley Bird Club as well. Last year, invited us to join them at their symposium. And I think we had like 30 students that were able to go down and celebrate birding and bird research in Stockton at their big annual event. Oops. Anyways, here's a link to our club Instagram. This is where we post the majority of our events and both for announcements, for meetings, field trips. So for any students out there, definitely check us out. And you can follow along with our field trips. We oftentimes will post reports of what we've been up to. And if you want to contact us, our email is at the top. I think that's it. And yeah, that's it. I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you feel about people who may be past the undergrad stage coming on some of your trips?
Yeah, we are. So the question was, how do I feel about people that are past undergraduate age? But I'm going to expand that to everyone. Anyone who's interested is welcome to come out. We are really, our goal is just to try to get as many people interested in birds and birding as possible. So if you guys want to come out and join us, or if people want to lead trips or anything like that, like we're very, very open to that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming, and rightly so, students would have priority on limited field trips, is that right? Or is it-
Yeah, that would be true. So in cases where like we have a limited number of spaces, we'd have to prioritize students. That's not the case for very many. Yeah. Mhm.
I guess, being an old folk, the nexus to being in contact with you, or as I believe the previous lady mentioned, that this may be the second to last meeting here for this year, I presume. So, how does one sort of stay in contact with your program?
Are you referring to the UC Davis Club or Yola Bird Alliance? Okay, so for the Birdwatching Club, where all of our stuff takes place within the university calendar, so that'd be like the end of September through mid-June. And so you can follow along on our Instagram or on our website with our events there. But for the Yola Bird Alliance, which I think maybe that's what you're referencing for this being the second to last meeting, that all of the information is all available on the Yola Bird Alliance website. But there's also lots of other non-meeting events, like we have field trips and stuff posted there. I'm sure somebody can send out a link.
And we usually do the Yellow Bird Alliance, it takes a break over the summer too, so we don't have meetings or field trips much in the summers, but we go for September. So look back again in September, and then we still May, but
And the Alliance has an email distribution, so.
that's true, we don't need that distribution list.
Zane, this is Ken. There's a couple of questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Guys, I'm curious, what's the climate like out there for employment for people? Interested in bird, wildlife biology?
Mhm. Did you want to go say something?
No,
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. The question from the audience was, what is the climate like for bird related employment right now? Uh, I would say it's not good. I mean, it's definitely opportunities that have gone away in the last year or two that were available before. I think everything's gotten more competitive as a result. But I think that there's also a lot of people out there who want to see change happen, want to see birds protected. And so even though funding and stuff might be limited, I think there's still a lot of really motivated people out there that are trying to keep, long running projects and conservation work going. So it's probably not as lucrative a opportunity as it was 5 years ago, but I think people are still really motivated to continue to promote conservation. Yeah, and I think it'll shift. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, that's, I mean, good job, right? There's from others who are trying to get opportunities. Yes, like on a level, even on state level, things may not much forward. The key thing is actually things like this, focusing on the local level, then things actually start listening, because that's where a lot of the change is positive, happening even if it's. So that's always been the best.
Tim
way
says
to
check the chat.
now is act locally, like think locally, of course, the state stuff what's going on, act more locally in the meantime.
And governments, some of them trying to pick up some of the slack where the state or federal opportunities.
Awesome.
Ted Turner, he was the head of CNN. He is the single largest landowner in the United States as a privateer landowner. Orientation as well as things as exotic as rat snakes. So guys like that who aren't local, sure. I mean, on a national level, he's in an international level. But people like that, you'd be very surprised that if you send some sort of a correspondence, I don't know, it has to be an email, let it be. But there's a lot of organizations much beyond the narrowness of your scope that would love to contribute to things like this. I mean, this is absolutely beautiful. And your presentation was, as well as this, to narrowing people to features of beauty and habitat and existence, it's absolutely exquisite. And I don't think you should sell yourself short by saying, we have only this porthole to find resources, because it's simply not true. Sorry.
We do have a few questions in the chat
Okay.
there. You can scroll through them.
Maybe look at it where there's larger nonprofits, so to speak, that are giving the slab, inside.
Well, yes, it doesn't have to be nonprofit. There's a lot of exquisitely generous people they make a profit, but they're doing things, and it's not always known. They don't say when we pave a whole church's parking lot for free on a weekend. They don't say things like that. It's a $200,000 job probably, and they don't mention anything about it. It's all, there's many aspects of contribution that people are doing, and you can bet,
Totally, yeah.
as well as I mean, you would be enhancing probably the Asian market by not utilizing your cell phone, but utilizing a more refined lens that they have that would capture birds' existence. Much those cameras were much better than your cell phone in capturing the beauty of the birds. It's just simply odd.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people in our club that are like really talented photographers and stuff too. And so they're going to be like focused more on art, stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah. A question. Well, Cam apparently is in the chat, the former co-founder of the club. He says that he's currently hoping that some University of Arizona students get started with a birdwatching club there, but it's a relatively smaller ecology school. How have you collaborated events so that they don't conflict or help join together with similar club events? I think Cam's probably referring to like the other clubs on campus with similar interests relatively to us that I mentioned. And I think the biggest thing is like kind of seeing where the similarities do overlap. So like I said, with the Wildlife Photography Club, who's really focused on like the technical photography side of things. Um, we also have a lot of really talented photographers in our club that like to photograph birds. And so, meeting up with them and doing events with them is useful for everybody. They get to practice shooting birds, which are challenging subjects. And we get to learn more about using, technical cameras and stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't think that there's really a conflict. I think it's more of like a group um, togetherness aspect of it. And I hope the University of Arizona gets a club started because as we saw through the intercollegiate big day, there was a lot of campuses throughout the US that are all kind of taking off in the last few years. I think there's been a really big push for younger people, college age and below, getting into birding, which I'm really, really happy to see. Another question says, are we helping in any bird conservation efforts through the club? I think the biggest thing that we're probably doing is I think the biggest thing we're doing is getting people into birding. I think conservation has to start from inspiring people at the ground up. And so I think the people that we impact every year, I think we've definitely helped put a lot of people into bird conservation and certainly the university plays a big role in that in the wildlife major. But I think having people get out into the field, which is something that we provide more than a lot of classroom experience does, inspires a lot of people. And I think that is probably our biggest contribution. But in addition, what else? I think like actual on-campus programs is something that we'd like to take more part in going forward. And I think the Audubon on Campus program is going to help us do that. We are currently working on some window strike prevention programs on campus. So that'll be really good to help make sure that campus glass is safe and doesn't impact birds that way. But yeah, I think we'll definitely do more on the ground stuff going forward. I think that's it. So unless anybody has any other questions, oh, maybe not.
Is this it?
You can. You can.
It's not pasta thing.
No, I'm pretty sure that's my mom. You guys can read my mom's. Yeah, you guys can read my mom's message. Well, you said you had a question.
Yeah. Kind of continuing on with what you're saying with the camp stuff, like, you guys have done the big day, accomplished the thing out of the on campus. And you mentioned things like the grants. You thought about trying to get campus-based research as a possibility, opportunity for Lona Club?
Yeah. So the question was like offering campus-based research opportunities in the club. I think there's a lot of that already that we don't technically oversee. I think there's a lot of people in the club that are doing like different projects, but I think if you're thinking like the club starting like a monitoring program or something, I think that would be really cool. But I think the biggest thing is like, time and funding. We tend to do more when we work together with the other groups on campus, I think, than like maybe pioneering stuff on our own, but certainly something to think about. Another one.
First, like, this is like really hurting to see kind of started qualifying to go with kind of this later for this. So
Mhm.
I guess my question is, do you think some of the motivation people that are being diverse because of the pandemic a little bit?
Yeah. So a good question from the audience was, do I think that the pandemic about 5 years ago, which coincidentally was around when this club was started impacted the amount of young birders in particular that we're seeing at clubs like ours all throughout the country, but also just in general. And I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I think that being isolated in that way when during the COVID period forced a lot of people to appreciate nature more. I think like for a lot of people, their only real connection to like the outdoors and stuff was like their birds in their backyard and stuff like that. I think people had more time because they weren't commuting and stuff like that. And I think people were connecting online a lot too. And sharing pictures of birds with your friends it's kind of infectious for probably not the right word to use, but but so yeah, and I've talked about that with other people too. There definitely has been a really rapid growth since 2020. Not just with young people, but also I think around that same time, different projects took off, like eBird. Have you heard of eBird before?
Oh,
Okay, yeah. eBird really got popular during COVID with a lot of people. The Merlin app by Cornell was basically launched then, and it's gotten a lot better in the last few years. So I think that makes birding a lot more accessible to people. When you're first starting out, it's not quite so overwhelming as like opening a field guide and seeing 1,000 species in it and not knowing where to start. So I think those have both really contributed to seeing a big uptick. But I mean, it's documented. Like I don't know if it was Audubon or another group put out something recently where they talked about the huge spike in young birders and birders as a whole. So it's definitely a thing.
I went to make that a lot of like. It's very seriously rather till the
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely is a recent trend, which is great to see. Go for it.
Yeah, like you said, definitely you're kind of answering some of this through just talking about the trips and like the regular months of the club in the past several years. But just theoretically, like if you were a birder starting for the first time at UC Davis, like I don't know how many places you obviously there's a lot of places for the purpose of birding. It's like what are some of the either geographic features of Yolo County itself that would make this like a unique location against birdwatching clubs or organizations in other states or other schools? Like, what makes Davis unique as the origin for this club? And like, what are some of the regional things that would be really special for experience as a first time birder or someone being influenced by that?
Yeah. So the question was, what makes UC Davis a place where a club like this can take off, and like what areas regionally are particularly impactful for people that are first starting out? I guess first I would say I don't know that it's necessarily the location that has made it so successful. I think it's the university. I think Davis being like number 2 in the country in ecology draws a lot of people that are interested in wildlife already. And then I think it's easy to go from wildlife to like birds. So I think that's probably like the biggest thing. I think you have a lot of the people that are like already have the baseline interests. But at the same time, we also live in a place where we have really, really good access to a lot of special places to see birds and nature. I know for me, when I was younger, something that was really inspiring was going and seeing like giant flocks of waterfowl at like the Yola Bypass Wildlife Area or Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge. And I think as you get really into birding, you start to hone in on like new species or like difficult to identify birds. But I think when you're first starting out, like that awe moment when you see just like a huge cloud of birds in the distance is like a big deal. And then there's also the popular species. So like we did our trip up to Sac Refuge in February and we had like 9 bald eagles and we were pulling over for 10 minutes for everyone. And like that's great. And people were like taking photos out the sunroof and stuff like that. So I think those moments that for people that are like, wow, birds are awesome, right? I think it's different for everybody. Yeah.
That's great. Right here, going in the heart of the delta. That's
Yeah.
stopover spot.
Totally, yeah. And along like Poudre Creek is a short bike ride from campus, so like and the Arboretum has great birding. So there's also lots of places, I guess more to your point, that like students can access really easily to be out in nature and see a bunch of birds.
I saw the movie a couple of years ago, like the soul area is pretty special for, I would say, for studying.
Totally, yeah.
What the wildlife. Like, it's kind of, bird water, walks, cul-de-sac. Different species of birds.
Yeah, the magpie.
Magpies.
Yeah, totally.
This place really is smart.
Mhm.
I spent last 30 years in South Florida and never relates bird watching there, doing wildlife up there. And I never thought the Everglades would pale by comparison. It's just both.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure about having your people when you're having interaction with the raptor center.
Yeah. Was asked if any people in the club have connection to the Raptor Center. Definitely. There's a lot of people that volunteer at the Raptor Center. I mean, I'm sure I don't know all of them, but I can think of 3 or 4 already. So the California Raptor Center, if people don't know, is like a raptor rehabilitation center that I think it's the vet school that runs it. Yeah. And they take volunteers from the university to help them with keeping their birds. And yeah, it's definitely like, it's almost like a slightly different subset of people. There's people that like really love the raptors. And so like when we did that raptor workshop, it filled up and we had like 30 people super stoked to see these hawks and eagles and stuff up close. So yeah, in short, yes, we have lots of people that are doing that.
Everyone's could use some improvement, though, I think.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think it could too. I'll leave it at that.
Should we give Zane a hand and come out to